Three, two, one.
Action.
Hey, Nick. Here we are, episode 21.
Correct.
Can't believe it. Did you get a haircut?
Correct.
Me too.
Crazy.
Nice. Well, welcome everyone, episode 21, Untitled ZX. I was running around today. I had to take Audrey to her dance class.
Fun.
What, what'd you do today and this weekend?
Today, I got a haircut. This weekend, I don't remember. That was 3 whole days ago, and it wasn't that interesting.
I gotcha. Okay. Well, hopefully this weekend is going to be more interesting. It should be. Your sister's graduating.
Correct.
You get to sit through a nice high school graduation ceremony.
At least this one's not outside. Allegedly.
That is good. I wonder who the speaker is going to be.
No clue.
Yeah, me neither.
I don't even know if she knows, frankly, because her school
Yeah,
computer.
I think I think there's a good chance she doesn't know.
Yes, that's a very realistic assumption.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get into it. This
Yeah.
week's agenda.
Some
We're gonna do a little bit about Fortnite. Huh?
Yes, the
I
game
haven't
decided to
heard
be
I haven't heard about Fortnite in a while.
the game decided to be interesting for the first time in like 8 years, so
Yeah, I was gonna say it's been a while. All right, then we got a movie review, The Furious. We got Summer Games Fest news, a second movie review, which I'm interested in, Masters of the Universe, and Star Wars time. So, all right,
yes.
let's jump in. First, Fortnite, start there. What's happening?
So, the brand new season, Chapter 7, Season 3 Runners just began following the Shattered live event on, I think that was Friday night. Um, See, normally I don't discuss Fortnite around here, but generally, this is the first time the game's actually been interesting with sort of its lore. Because the thing about the game at its prime is there's always been an overarching story, even if it's not technically a story-driven game. And after the former, I believe, design director or creative director of the game, Donald Mustard, was forcefully retired in 2022, the
Hmm.
story sort of came to a screeching halt and has just sort of been meandering around plot points that weren't overly interesting for the last
Hmm.
like 4 years, leaving sort of the main things that he'd been building up for a while, because they had been building up pretty much since, I believe, Chapter 1, Season 3. Mind you, we are in Chapter 7, Season 3, which I believe is Season 41 overall. And that means that it's been 7, 8 years since they started building up this story. But again, it came to a screeching halt
Hmm.
after Donald Mustard left the company. He now works. He co-founded. He went on to co-found a production company with the Russo brothers of Avengers: Infinity War and Avengers: Endgame fame. He's apparently good friends with them. Um, but the story sort of revolved around the reality that the whole battle royale took place in was called Reality Zero, and Reality Zero was basically the center of existence, which was held together by this cosmic orb called the Zero Point. And there were two
Hmm.
factions, the Seven, who are heroic characters who are fighting to free the Zero Point, and the Imagined Order, led by the mysterious Geno, who were trying to control it. And then so they created the loop, which is the reason Battle Royale is able to happen. Um,
Okay.
so it followed the conflict between these two factions for about 5 years up until Chapter 3, Season 4. Because there was a big war with the Imagined Order in Chapter 3, Season 2, and they teased that we were finally going to see what Geno looked like and what his whole deal was. And then we just forgot about him right after because they were trying to rework the story. So, getting back to the now, the most recent season, the previous season, Chapter 7, Season 2, brought back the leader of the Seven, the Foundation, who is infamously portrayed by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Hmm.
And after 4 years of absence, they didn't really do much with him. They had him fight the Ice King, who's another character who's dates back to 2018. They had a rivalry. It wasn't, the gameplay was decent, but the big final event ends with both the Foundation and the Ice King dying at the hand. The Foundation lost the fight with the Ice King, which is funny because that is probably the first time in recent memory that The Rock lost a fight in a piece of media because
Yeah, right. He's always the hero. Yeah.
allegedly he has a no lose con clause in his contract, but I guess he was willing to violate it for the sake of immersion, I guess.
Hmm.
And so he was killed, and then the Ice King reports to his business partner, the Dark Voyager, who executes him on the spot for having outlived his usefulness. The Dark Voyager puts the 0 point back together in this new reality and unleashes like cosmic like annihilation, destroys and forges realities on top of each other, leaving us with a completely new map, which is interesting because
Hmm.
Fortnite does chapters, and every chapter there's a new map, but
Hmm.
the map is almost completely new this season, even though it's still chapter 7. So it's not the same map from the first two seasons of this chapter, but it's still part of this chapter,
Hmm.
which is kind of bizarre. But
Well, so
that
besides the new map, how does it affect the gameplay?
it's not necessarily the gameplay implications, but the narrative implications, where our main character, Agent Jones,
Hmm.
sees the Foundation lose the fight and the Dark Voyager unleash his reality warping disaster from afar, where he and a variant of the Visitor from another timeline, who was another member of the Seven, sort of realize that everything's fallen apart. There's a fly in front of me. Get out of here. Um, yeah, but they see reality sort of completely fall apart. The Dark Voyager, now in an evolved form, attacks the two of them, and instead of helping him, like, members of the Seven usually do, the Visitor then shoots Jones in a big plot twist, removes his helmet to reveal that he's in fact not a variant of the Visitor from another timeline, but rather Geno himself, the big villain this game has been building up to for years, working undercover. Jones is
Wow.
unconscious now. He's in like a Bacta tank, but he's the only one who knows that the Visitor is not who he claims to be, but rather, again, the biggest threat in the Omniverse. A tie-in comic they did a couple years ago establishes that Geno is at the very least on the same power level as Thanos, because they did a Marvel crossover comic, and Iron Man fought Geno.
So will they continue the story? And then what does that mean? We're going to see more Geno, I guess, in the
Yeah.
next
At
next
the
chapters.
Yeah, at the moment, he's sort of lurking in the shadows because the thing is, again, it's not a story-driven game per se. The
Right.
story sort of overarches over like the regular multiplayer matches, but for
Right.
the last couple of years, you've been able to interact with NPCs on the map who have dialogue, and some of the quest lines, some of the challenges that you complete to get battle pass rewards also contain voice lines and dialogue. So there's been dialogue because at the moment Geno is still in his facade as the Visitor. The other
Hmm.
and the only one who knows that he is actually Geno is unconscious and severely wounded. So
So
right
so
now
no, so we still haven't seen Geno then.
we have seen his face. We have seen he showed his face to Jones when he shot
Okay.
him. But
Got it.
again, Jones is the only one who saw his face and knows who he
Got it.
really is under that mask. So right now he is still working with our heroes as part of his facade, and nobody knows that it's him under the mask, which is kind of terrifying. I kind of like when they do things like that, where there's someone in there who's like a double agent, and the
Hmm.
characters don't know, but the audience knows, which sort of creates an external sense of dread where like the very thing they're trying to stop is right in plain sight.
Uh, all
And
right. That's pretty interesting then. So how often do the seasons and chapters come out?
every season lasts for about 3 to 4 months, depending on
Hmm.
sort of how long. It depends on really the gameplay cycle. They're in a bit of a weird spot right now because at the start of last season, Epic Games decided to lay off a third of the company.
Yeah. It doesn't seem like it's as big as it used to be. I don't know. I mean,
They seem to
Frankie plays it now and then, but not that often.
I still play it fairly frequently, but they've been kind of frustrating with, again, making these bizarre business decisions, like hiring one of the most paid actors of all time to play one of your most crucial characters and then firing a third of the company because you can't afford to pay them anymore.
Yeah.
Because you spent all your money on a contract with Disney or a contract with The Rock.
Right. Yeah. I gotta believe their revenues are down a bit, but yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see where it goes. Interesting.
If they don't botch it halfway through, I may or may not provide an update or do live streams on my other channel. We'll see. I don't know. I do
Yeah.
that
All
sometimes.
right. Sounds good. All right. Let's get to the first movie review. The Furious. What's it about? Tell me.
So this one actually is not technically out at the time of recording. Its listed release date is June 12th. We're recording this on June 9th. By the time this is released, it'll be June 14th, so it will be out. But Sometimes AMC and some of the other major theater chains do these mystery movies. AMC calls it Screen Unseen, where they'll have an unreleased film. Um, so it's usually a week or two before the listed release date. They'll screen it early, but not tell you what it is, literally until you get
Mhm.
there.
Yeah.
Um, I sort of did calculations going into this and sort of followed online threads, sort of predicting and speculating, and it was basically all but confirmed that this was indeed what it was going to be. And I wanted to see this, but this weekend's very busy, and I have multiple movies I want to squeeze in this weekend. And right now, I'm like, if I'm going to squeeze something in this weekend, it's going to be Disclosure Day because it's Spielberg. So I'm gonna get
Yeah.
so if I can get this out of the way early, then sure, because I want to see this anyway. I'd seen like no footage going into this, but so I went into this almost completely blind. The only thing I knew is that it was a action movie, and the guy who played Sub-Zero in the live action Mortal Kombat movies is in it.
Yeah. What do you think? What worked?
So this is the thing about this is it's a Chinese or Japan, it's an Asian action movie. Like it's styled after those like old Chinese like Jackie Chan kung fu movies.
Yeah.
Like it's got sort of like over the top choreography like that, which I
Hmm.
think is sort of the highlight of this film. Like if you want like old school, like insane fight choreography and non-stop action for 2 hours, like this is the movie for you. Like
Hmm.
it's very thin on the narrative department, but I think it's not that the story is bad, it's just that it's basic. But I think this is one that it's more sort of the aesthetics and the style of the movie that makes it so appealing. And the
Hmm.
story doesn't need to be overly complicated because it's sort of not just styled after those old Chinese movies, but it's also got a bit of like a John Wick flair to it. There's one fight sequence in the first act of the movie that in like a nightclub that feels ripped right out of John Wick with like the
Hmm.
flashing like strobe lights. Like that's the kind of stuff
Hmm.
you'd see in like a John Wick movie. They do that quite a lot in the John Wick movies. The main character was the premise is sort of it's something you'd see in like Man on Fire or The Equalizer where they find where there's the two main characters. You've got this mute guy who is like he's learned kung fu for self-defense, and his daughter is kidnapped by a child trafficking ring. And
I've
the
seen
other
that
main
before. Yeah.
the other main character is Joe Taslim, who played Sub-Zero's character. He's trying to find this ring because him and his wife were journalists, and his wife wanted to expose the ring and was taken by them.
Have you
So
seen
he's
Taken?
no,
I think it's the same plot.
yeah, it's a pretty basic plot. It's a pretty
Except
basic.
Taken takes place in Paris, but
Yeah, this is in like Southeast Asia, I believe, somewhere. I don't know exactly what country it's in, but they sort of end up teaming up where our mute guy just wants to beat everyone up like he thinks that's going to solve his problems. But I think the interesting thing is that his daughter is the one kidnapped. He's trying to save his daughter, but she ends up like he's taught her a lot of sort of self-defense and kung fu as well.
Mhm.
So you see sequences where she's in the cell with the other kids, and she actually manages to correlate a plan to help them escape. I mean, it only gets them so far, but hey, she takes the initiative and helps rescue herself in the
Hmm.
film's climax, which I actually kind of appreciated.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if that's better or worse because yeah, I don't know.
I think it kind of
In
helped
in,
because it
in
showed that she
Taken
took
in
initiative.
Taken the girls I don't think did not help. They did defend themselves a little bit, but they really felt like a victim, and so I don't know. I
This
felt for them.
Yeah, this there were two main like with the kid. There was another kid who was like his parents were like forced into this ring and forced to work for this ring, and then he watched his dad die
Hmm.
because his dad was one of the henchmen who failed. And you see this kid who's like, poor me, there's no getting out, and she's like, no, bro, we're gonna get out of here. And they
Yeah.
sort of end up they that's sort of a fun dynamic too, because they end up having like a sibling-like dynamic. But there's sort of an interesting thing is once they get into the building and they try to they find the kids escaping and the mute guy and his daughter are reunited and they're about to leave because the journalist guy says that he's like, "Yo, I can take it from here. Get her out of here." But
Mhm.
immediately after he's getting overrun and they steal a mo there's one of the funniest sequences and the most like insane sequences in the movie is they turn back to help him right afterwards when they're raiding the the sort of ring's fortress, and
Hmm.
they find him. They're running away, but then they turn back to help him. They get on a motorcycle and then they drive up the stairs and through the hallway and just start plowing through guys on a motorcycle. So he's driving the motorcycle and the daughter's on the back with like a freaking baseball bat, just smacking them. And there's one the daughter actually helps with the fighting a little bit too. She's not crazy involved, but there's a part where he lifts her up, kicks a guy, and then lets her slide down his back, and then she breaks his leg with the bat. Like the choreography, I think it's just really smooth. Like there were a lot of things like that just sort of were like, okay, that was really smooth.
Yeah,
And
that's
sort of
crazy.
particularly the way the characters sort of fight together when you have multiple characters fighting in
Hmm.
conjunction, the way they manage to make sort of these movements where these two people are meant to like work in tandem is like
Hmm.
insanely smooth. Like you see a lot of tag teaming in this movie and a lot of sort of the movements they do, the way they sort of move and fight in conjunction with one another, more so with the heroes than the henchmen that they're fighting. The henchmen are just kind of stupid, but there's some pretty nasty kills too. I don't think the gore is like anything blown out of proportion, nothing I haven't seen before. But I think what sort of made the gore so or a lot of the kills hit so much is the sound effects are like really like vivid.
Yeah.
Like you don't see like you see a lot of blood obviously, but it's nothing again, nothing I haven't seen before, nothing you haven't seen in like John Wick. But the sound design, you'll hear them like break someone's arm and it'll be like loud, the crunch of the bone. Like you'll hear like
Wow.
bones
Okay.
breaking, gut being put like the sound when they do it like again very bloody, very gory, but it's not like anything you won't already be comfortable with from watching like John Wick or something.
Yeah.
Like it's fairly tame gore, but they double down on sort of the grotesqueness through not visuals but sound.
Yeah. It's interesting.
I don't think they want you to focus on the gore too much. They want you to actually focus on the movements and the choreography
Yeah.
more so than the actual blood, but they still make some of the kills like really grotesque because again with the sound design during the nightclub fight I mentioned earlier, they're on like a balcony stories up and he pushes a guy off the ledge and you hear like many bones crack and then he like limps off. That's the henchman
Yeah.
who
Normally, when people get thrown over, you don't hear the end result. You just, yeah.
yeah, that's sort of I like it when they do that, even if they don't necessarily have to show blood, but they use sound
Right.
to sort of convey that, ooh, that hurt.
All right. Well, so what's your overall score?
I think this is a 9 out of 10. This is a movie that I think a lot of people could really like. It's a very enjoyable watch. It's
Yeah.
simple from a story department, but if you want 2 hours of nonstop action and decent performances, because the performances are pretty decent too. The lead guy, I don't know his name, but again, he's mute, he can't speak, but he's fairly expressive despite the fact that like he does a lot with sort of his body language and sort of
Yeah.
his
That's
facial
crazy. One of the
expression.
main characters doesn't speak. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a pretty tough script to write.
It creates an interesting dynamic too between our two leads, the main guy and the journalist, because the journalist very much does speak. So you've got this dynamic where they sort of form a legitimate friendship even though he can't talk.
Yeah.
But like you
All
manage to
right.
buy into their dynamic.
Let's keep going. Summer Games Fest. What's this?
So, up and for about 20 years in June, there was always this event called E3, the Electronic Entertainment Expo, which
Hmm.
was a in-person like video game news event that was like the event of the summer. They did it for probably from like the early 2000s up until 2019 was the final time they held it. And many other video game companies would host their own presentations off to the side, sort of just to double down on the hype. Um,
Hmm.
COVID sort of caused
Yeah,
the
there's applause. We talked about this last week a little, right?
yeah, E3 was no, it wasn't paused. They straight up pulled the plug. They tried to revive
Okay.
it a couple years later. They tried to revive it in I think 2021 and 2022, but by 2023 they realized that what they weren't going to be able to pull it off. They didn't have I don't know exactly why, but they couldn't get whatever they needed, the resources or the funds or the investors or whatever to buy into bringing it back. However, the people behind the Game Awards do this thing called Summer Games Fest, and the other big companies, they still sort of follow suit. Like they still follow the whole June is big announcements month for video games, even without E3. And I think this year is probably the biggest one since the last E3 in
Hmm.
2019. Like this was a big series of events. We talked about the PlayStation State of Play last week, and
Right.
we're going to talk a bit about Summer Games Fest and the Xbox presentation on Sunday. There was a Nintendo Direct too, but I don't really care about anything Nintendo has to offer.
So what kind of news did we get?
I've only got a couple of the highlights here. The first one is one that I don't really know much about, but it's a franchise I do want to get into, and I've started trying to get into with Resident Evil Veronica, which comes out
Mhm.
next year. That is a remake of Resident Evil Code Veronica, which came out 26 years ago. They've been doing a lot of remakes of like the older Resident Evil games. Like in 2023, they did a remake of Resident Evil 4 that was really popular.
Yeah, it makes
Um,
sense. I mean, some of those games are pretty old. Yeah,
yeah.
you realize how old they are at this point. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, I've only played a little bit of the second game's remake because they remade 2, 3, 4, and now they're remaking Code Veronica, which
Okay.
I think this takes place. This is either a prequel or an interquel. I don't actually know. I haven't played much of the games. I've played a little bit of 2, but that's it. And I've seen the old movies by Paul W.S. Anderson that are really bad. But here's hoping I've made some progress by the time this comes out. Because they just did a new game in the series. The ninth main game, Requiem, just came out a couple months ago.
All
Um,
right. What else we got going?
Alien Isolation 2 was just formally announced. It was teased a month or so back, but this was the formal announcement for the game. It is a long-awaited sequel to, well, Alien Isolation, which it's based on the Alien franchise. I believe that movie, or that game rather, takes place in between the original Alien movie and Aliens, and it focuses on Ripley's daughter trying to find, as an adult, trying to find out what happened to her mother.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
naturally, she ends up encountering a xenomorph and alien shenanigans ensued. I haven't played the game yet, but I do have it. I want to play it because I've heard a lot of good things about it, particularly sort of the computer or like the NPC, the actual alien, sort of the way it's programmed, from what I'm told, is very adaptable. Like you can't like memorize its movements because it is programmed to
Hmm.
adapt to you,
Wow.
the player. So if you fail and get killed by trying a certain strategy, it'll then anticipate you trying the
Try
same,
that again.
which for a game that came out 12 years ago, that's fairly impressive. Like that's something.
Yeah, that's rough. And now I'm thinking, like, can you imagine? Yeah, with AI and everything now, I'd imagine they can make the games really adaptable.
Yeah, they haven't really seen, like, it's not often we see games try sort of technology like this. The only thing else I can
Yeah.
think of is the Nemesis system from Middle-earth Shadow of War, which was sort of like if you piss someone off or like attack someone or hurt someone, they will actively hunt you down,
Yeah.
which
Well,
that's
and I'm
just,
trying to think, you could probably easily make games unbeatable that way now, but
that's sort of,
then no one's gonna buy them.
well,
So,
the Nemesis system is interesting because it was used in one game ever, Middle-earth Shadow of War in 2017. And that is a weird one because somehow, some way, Warner Bros. Managed to copyright a video game mechanic. They invented a mechanic for a game and managed to put a copyright patent on the mechanic, which I don't
mhm.
understand. And as far as I'm aware, the patent doesn't, or the mechanic's copyright doesn't expire for another decade at least,
Yeah, yeah,
which is
yeah.
bizarre because they won't even use the mechanic. They used it once 9 years ago and then never again, but
Mhm.
no one else can use it because they own the rights to the mechanic, which is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting.
Like something like Grand Theft Auto or Star Wars Outlaws would have benefited from a system like that, I feel like.
Yeah, yeah.
But
All right, what else?
this one was kind of interesting because Skydance just became part of Paramount or whatever, and now they're called Paramount Games.
Mhm.
Paramount Games' very first announcement is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Last Ronin, which is based on the comic series of the same name. Great comic. I've read it actually. It's amazing. The comic's sort of set in like an alternate future where all the turtles have been killed except for one of them, who is later revealed to be Michelangelo, and he's like depressed and miserable and has all of their weapons. And New York is now run by the tyrannical grandson of the Shredder, and he's like his ultimate goal is to kill the grandson and avenge his family. Like it's
Oh,
almost
okay.
like the Wolverine movie Logan.
Hmm.
It's like that, but for turtles. It's
But for
based,
Michelangelo.
yeah, from a tonal standpoint. We haven't seen anything about gameplay. We don't even know when this is coming out. But it's being developed by Platinum Games, who have actually developed a Turtles game before. They developed one called Mutants in Manhattan 10 years ago.
Hmm.
But this is actually not the first time this game has been announced. Well, it's the first time this game has been announced, but it's not the first time a video game adaptation of this comic was announced. A couple years ago, a company called Black Forest Games had
Hmm.
announced a TMNT The Last Ronin adaptation, which for a while we thought was dead because they never addressed it again. But then this came out and people are like, oh, is it alive again? But no, it actually turns out this is completely unrelated to Black Forest Games' version. Their version has been quietly canceled behind the scenes in favor of this Platinum Games version. Again, we don't know when it comes out. They also announced a one-shot comic issue, The Last Ronin Training Day, which which is specifically announced to tie in with the announcement of the game. I don't know why they do it so soon if the game doesn't even have a release year. Like the trailer didn't even say like 2027 or whatnot. Like I don't expect this until 2028 or 29
Right. Hmm.
because video
Okay.
love to be announced egregiously early for some reason.
Yeah, that is crazy. All right. What else we got?
This one was kind of caught me off guard because I did not think we'd see a AAA game from this franchise, but Gundam Rogue Orbit was announced for next year. Which is kind of interesting because I've seen Gundam video games before and they're usually pretty cheap looking and they're usually just fighting games or random games that just let you play as all the different mechs or different mobile suits from the various anime. But this game, however, seems to be set in a new timeline or a new era with original characters and original like mech designs, which is why I didn't actually catch that it was Gundam right away until they finally started to show off like a proper Gundam style mobile suit, and I was like, wait a minute, I recognize that aesthetic.
Hmm.
The gameplay, they showed a little bit of gameplay, but not enough for me to buy it yet. But it's not up for pre-order anytime soon anyway, because it's not out until next year. But the
Hmm.
gameplay, I'm not fully sold on the gameplay yet, but again, it's an interesting thing that I did not really see coming. Not a Gundam
Hmm.
game of this scale, but it
Okay.
it
And then
looks
is there a new Halo coming out?
um new, not exactly, but
Okay.
so Halo Campaign Evolved was announced last fall. It is not actually a new game, it is a ground up remake of the original game, Combat Evolved.
Hmm.
But the interesting thing about this is that not only is it going to release on Xbox Series X and PC, but this will be the first Halo title to also be released on PlayStation,
Hmm.
which is a big thing because Xbox has decided they don't really want to do exclusivity anymore because nobody buys their consoles. But this will
Yeah.
also it'll be a ground up sort of remake of the first game because they did a remaster of the first game for its 10th anniversary back in 2011, but I've played it. It doesn't hold up too great. The level design's still pretty repetitive. But
Hmm.
this is coinciding with the original game's 25th anniversary, and I can't wait to play this because I never beat the first game. I almost beat it, but the last Warthog run, the very end of the game where you have to get to an escape ship while the ring is exploding on one of the cars, the Warthogs, that was a nightmare
Hmm.
to beat, so I just gave up and looked up the ending because I wanted to move on to the second game, which had the second game did have a full-blown not necessarily a remake, but I guess it was kind of a remake. You could still switch to like the old graphics because it was considered a remaster, but like they rebuilt the visuals of the second
Hmm.
game from the ground up with its 10th anniversary version, as opposed to the first game, which was just slightly updated. This was like again ground up, still looks visually stunning 12 years later. I've heard
Hmm.
rumors that they're working on remakes of the second and third game as well, but that's not been confirmed yet. Um, the interesting thing is not only is this a remake, but there's going to be three new missions that are prequel missions that takes place before the first game, which are going to be the first time we see Master Chief wearing his Mark IV armor on, or actually in a game. Like we know what it looks like, but this is the first time we're going to see him like in action in the Mark IV armor, because in the original game he wears Mark V Mjolnir armor, And from pretty much every game two arm onwards, he wears the Mark 6 Mjolnir armor. We have no idea what Marks 1 through
Isn't
3
there
are.
a Halo movie?
There was a TV show that ran for 2 seasons and got canceled because the first season was really bad. The
Got
second
it.
season was less bad, but the first season was not good. I didn't mind season 2 though. Season 2 wasn't awful. It wasn't great because it was still following up on season 1, but like it tried its best to fix some things.
All right, let's get into the next movie review. I'm interested in this one. Masters of the Universe. Big
So,
film, I think.
well,
Tell me, what do you think of it?
so this one was kind of interesting because they didn't market it very well and it's not doing very well at the box office.
Yeah. Hmm.
But I was kind of fairly optimistic going into it because the director Travis Knight previously directed 2018's Bumblebee, so which is arguably the only good live action Transformers movie. So
I heard him talk about this movie actually, and I didn't realize that he is Phil Knight's son.
he is Phil Knight's son. Yes, he's also the CEO of Leica Studios, which does stop motion animation. Again, Kubo and the Two Strings and the forthcoming Wildwood are films
Yeah.
he's directed as well.
Nothing like another billionaire's son taking over movie and TV industries, but
Hey, at least this guy's got passion. A lot of them just take over for funsies for the hell of it, but this guy, he's got
yeah.
passion for what he's doing, and you
Yeah,
can
because the
feel it.
Skydance guy is Elson's son.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, Skydance is owned by Paramount, so that does make sense.
Well, yeah, so he's a billionaire's son as well. So, all right. So we got Travis Knight. Yep. And so you had good expectations. What'd you think?
Fairly, yeah. I think between this and Bumblebee, it's very clear that he has like a genuine passion and a genuine love for these sorts of like iconic like 80s like toy-based brands. And you can sort of feel it because I haven't seen the original Masters of the Universe movie they did back in the 80s, but a lot of what I've heard about it is people didn't like it because it took itself too seriously, and it's Masters of the Universe. The main villain's a guy named Skeletor, and his entire gimmick is that he's evil because it's fun. Like he's got no motivation or tragic backstory. Like he's just doing it because it's funny.
Yeah.
Like this is a franchise that does not.
Here they have an actual story, you're saying.
They have an actual story, but they don't take it too seriously either. Like they do
Mhm.
when they need to, but it doesn't like try to shy away. Like it's not embarrassed of its source material. I see too many, especially in the 2010s after like The Dark Knight and stuff, everyone was trying to mimic that style and everyone was like almost embarrassed. Like when you were doing a movie based on a toy or based on a comic book, it almost seemed like they were embarrassed of their source
Mhm.
material. It was like they were trying to
Yeah.
be dark and mature and realistic, like you see like that 2015 Fantastic Four that tried to be dark and mature and realistic, and it's like it's the Fantastic Four. Nobody wants them to be serious and muted colors. And
Mhm.
I think we're finally, but from with in this more modern era, we've seen movies like the newer Fantastic Four last year and Superman, and now this. It's sort of refreshing to see these things that aren't sort of embarrassed of the inherent like silliness and like wackiness of their source material.
I heard somebody describe this movie as like the male version of the
That's
Barbie movie.
definitely a way to, that's actually not totally unrealistic. It's got messages about toxic masculinity and why that's a bad thing versus positive
Exactly.
masculinity. He-Man is specifically depicted as this more positive role model who's not like conventionally big and buff and strong and macho right away, which, considering the fact that they made the guy get ridiculously jacked for the role, it's kind of weird that they tried that, but I think it landed fairly well because I think the thing is you also, again, with that edgy era of 2010s movies, you didn't have as many like positive male role models who were able to sort of express vulnerability. This
Hmm.
is, I put him sort of in the same tier as the newer version of the James Gunn incarnation of Superman, where they sort of lean back into the more positive role model aspects of the character and sort of the willingness to show vulnerability and not just start punching things for like this version of He-Man, yes, he's big and strong and can beat people up if he so chooses, but it's not his first resort. When he tries to reason with Skeletor at the end, which is really funny. He's like, there's got to be more to it, and you can figure it out by identifying why you're wrong. And Skeletor just
Yeah.
starts laughing at him, and he's like, you think I've got a tragic backstory? I'm just doing this because it's fun. And then
That's funny.
they start fighting, and there's one dialogue exchange that I think is really funny. This movie has some fairly good humor too,
Hmm.
particularly from, insanely enough, Jared Leto as Skeletor. Um,
Yeah.
I never thought I'd be at a point in my life where I'd be able to say that Jared Leto gave us a good performance, but I guess when you can't see his face, it's better. But he was fairly funny as Skeletor, I think. Like he was intimidating when he needed to be, but also just him being a giant man child who's cranky and just obnoxious. They didn't shy away from that. Like there's one scene where he steals the power sword from He-Man and he wants to get the power and he's like trying to recite the rituals. He's just like, by the power of Grayskull, I have the power, and then nothing happens. And he's like, he keeps pushing the sword up, raising the sword.
Yeah.
He's like, and he just storms off. Why isn't it working?
This reminds me of Barbie, the Barbie movie. It was pretty funny as well.
Yeah.
Was there any singing montages in this movie, like
Um,
Barbie?
no, but they did play a song in the background that was highly requested in one scene.
Mm,
The
okay.
That was the song. I'm blanking on the name of it, but it's like the hey yeah, yeah, which is
All
associated
right.
with like the He-Man memes.
Yeah,
So they
yeah,
played that in the background of one scene. The guy who plays He-Man was fairly funny as well. Like he gets stranded on Earth for 15 years.
yeah.
And
Hmm.
the opening scene is like 20 minutes of like his tragic backstory of Skeletor taking over and kidnapping his family, and he gets sent to Earth. And then it just has him narrating over it, and then it just cuts to him at a diner, and it turns out he's on a date with someone trying to explain his life story and trying to make it not sound like he's completely crazy.
Uh-huh.
Um, there's also a montage where he gets a text that someone found his sword and offers it to him for 300 bucks. So he goes to this like comic book store and he just goes around asking people if they have his sword, like just asking random people because he has no idea what his
Uh-huh.
contact looks like.
Oh
And
my
he
God.
finds the sword, which is being held by a giant like action figure statue. And you see him wrestling with this giant statue to get it out of his hand. And then he tries to summon like the portal himself away back to Eternia, and it doesn't work. So he just runs away and gets arrested. But
All
then
right. So what else was good?
um, Daniel Pemberton's score is amazing. Um,
Uh-huh.
he's done scores for, he did the Spider-Verse movies, or earlier this year he did the score for both the drama and Project Hail Mary. So he's on a bit of a roll
Hmm.
this year.
Wow, yeah, that's a lot.
I think it's obviously not as good as Project Hail Mary's score. I do actually think his score got a little overbearing because it repeated the same theme a lot in this movie, but
Hmm. Hmm.
I wasn't too annoyed with it because it's a good theme. So
Yeah. All right. So good score. That's cool. Anything else?
I also like a lot of the side characters got moments to shine. Like they had a lot of side characters who were like based on like the action figures from like the old cartoon. Like they
Hmm.
had Mecha whose whole thing is that his neck extends so he can make his
Hmm.
neck real long. And there's Ram Man, who is a giant dude who can launch himself like a rocket and then headbutts people. Like
Uh-huh.
it commits to the wackiness, which I also really appreciate. I love how it, like I said, it doesn't shy away from the goofiness of even its side characters. Like again, you've got a dude named Fisto because he's got a big fist and he punches people. Or
Yeah.
in Mecha Neck, his extendo neck, and they don't try to like make it more modern or more
Hmm.
like realistic. Like no, they go all in with like the cartooniness of it, like the goofiness. I do think that struggles or that sort of hurts the movie a little bit at times because some of these things don't translate the best into live action. Although I think it's more than anything, it ends up being the lighting sometimes ends up being kind of stiff, which is bizarre because you'd think it'd be a little more vibrant here
Hmm.
in a world like Eternia. Um, Also, there's a weird thing that they market because He-Man rides on this giant green tiger battle cat who has this
Hmm.
armor, but the armor, which is very, very prevalent in the marketing for the film, Battle Cat literally wears it in the final scene,
Yeah. Okay.
and that's it.
Hmm. Well, yeah, I guess because they probably made the movie and then later they made the toys.
Yeah, that makes sense. And they're definitely
Hmm.
leaving room for a sequel because at the end of the movie, there's like a 6 months later time jump, and He-Man's seen wearing his casual outfit from the cartoon, which is kind of
Okay.
interesting because he's got his like normal like He-Man's costume, but then he's got the
Hmm.
more casual outfit he wears in the cartoon, which he wears at the end of the movie.
Mhm.
which is kind of interesting. The fight choreography is fairly creative too. Again, going back to the side characters, they let them have a lot of fun action sequences too, like particularly with what's his name, Man of Arms, who is played by Idris Elba here. He was one of the main characters here, but he was actually a fairly fun character.
But the movie's not doing very well on it because a lot of like Lego movie did well, Barbie movie did well, a lot of the toy movies have done well.
I feel like the thing with a lot of them though is Masters of the Universe has kind of become kind of a niche property, like Lego
Well, it's
or
also pretty
Barbie.
old.
Yeah.
I don't even know. Do they
They
even sell Masters of the Universe toys anymore? I'm
they
sure they do now with the movie, but
they've done before because they've done a bunch of like TV shows, but those were all like Netflix TV shows that didn't get crazy marketing. They did a couple animated shows
uh,
in the early 2020s. But
maybe that's it. I mean, because Barbie is huge and Lego is huge.
or even
So,
something like Transformers, most of I mean, those have
yeah.
sort of I mean, those were doing better like 20 years ago when the first one came out. Those have sort of fizzled away now because
Yeah.
because people
There,
got used to
I've
Michael
still
Bay.
seen those. I've seen those toys though, but I don't remember seeing too many Masters of the Universe toys. But yeah.
Yeah, that
All right. Well, what's your rating overall?
it's like an 8 out of 10 overall. I
That's
thoroughly
pretty
enjoy
good.
commitment to its sheer goofiness.
Yeah.
Again,
All
don't
right.
like gotta
Well,
commit to the comic booky or the goofiness of the source material. That's what I appreciate when they do things like that.
all right. Well, let's go to Star Wars time. So, what's happening here? We got updates on Zero Company.
Yes, so this was part of Summer Games Fest. They did also show a new trailer for Galactic Racer, but I'm not going to talk about that because I didn't write it in the notes beforehand. And I don't even really think I paid that much attention to the trailer because I know all I need to know because I already pre-ordered the game. But Zero Company, I had not already pre-ordered because its release date was not yet revealed. It was leaked 2 days before Summer Games Fest as being August 27th. Yes, I already pre-ordered it. No, I have absolutely no shame. Um, we saw,
You got to go get a job. You're not gonna have any money for all these games.
yeah, I'm working on that, but
Yeah.
we saw an extended gameplay trailer, and I'm still not entirely. This is sort of a turn-based tactical game akin to the XCOM franchise, which makes sense because it is developed by the same people who developed the XCOM franchise. But this takes place during the Clone Wars, and the titular Zero Company is like this ragtag special forces group so that operates for the Republic, which is kind of interesting because during the Clone Wars, we're used to most infantry and even special forces units just being clones. So this is sort of interesting because it's not just clones. We've got a smuggler, we've got a Mandalorian, we've even got an Umbaran in here, which is interesting because Umbara and the Umbarans are infamously a separatist world during the Clone War. The plot is kind of, I don't get crazy amount of story vibes, but there's supposedly some presumably dark side related cult working with the separatists and some conspiracy that goes to the top. We have no idea what it's all about yet, but there is a Jedi character on the team. We see the Jedi character actually confronted by a character wielding a red lightsaber. We do not see who is holding the red lightsaber. We just see the blade and a little bit of the hilt, which that
Hmm.
has got me stumped because during the Clone Wars era, there are not that many Sith or Darksiders with red sabers active. So
Hmm.
I've been stumped trying to figure out whose saber it is because you see a little bit of the hilt sort of on, you see it from the top of the screen, you see the blade and you see a little bit of the hilt, the emitter region. And I'm like, who's active during this era? Maul, Savage, Dooku, Ventress. It's not going to be Palpatine, obviously,
Hmm.
but it doesn't match any of their hilts except for maybe it kind of matches Maul's, but I think this might be too early in the war to really be Maul because
Hmm.
Dooku and Savage both have like big prongs on the hilt. And I guess my only other guess is that it might be the original leader of the Knights of Ren, because the leaders of the Knights of Ren wield a lightsaber called the Ren, and I guess it kind of looks like that, although part of me thinks it might actually just be a new character who's connected to this dark side cult, who's not necessarily Sith or Ren, but
Hmm.
rather a completely non-related Darksider. Also, at the very end of the trailer, they showed that Anakin Skywalker is going to be in the game because, of course, he is, because we have not seen enough of him already. But
Because you have to have an Anakin or a Darth Vader and everything.
yeah, it feels like that a lot of the time. We had Darth Vader in the mall show. I mean, that kind of made sense, but I don't think they executed that very well. But yeah,
Well,
Anakin,
he's the most famous character, I think, so he's got to be in there, I guess.
yeah, seems like it.
All right. Some good news there. So, all right.
We got a little more Star Wars related news as well.
What's that?
For we don't know much. We still don't have much about this. We got news that we're getting news soon. The animated series Star Wars Visions, which is an anthology series, it's a bunch of animated shorts. The first and third seasons were strictly Japanese anime studios, although season two they did more like international companies. They worked with a lot of different companies, but the most
Hmm.
popular episode, or what a lot of people consider the most popular episode from the first season, was definitely my favorite, was called The Ninth Jedi. They
Hmm.
did in season three, they did follow-ups to a couple season one episodes, including The Ninth Jedi. But they also last year at Star Wars Celebration announced that they would be revealing the Visions Presents branding, which would be used for spin-off shows based on the Vision shorts that have room to expand. And The Ninth Jedi is getting a sequel miniseries this year. Visions Presents The Ninth Jedi. We didn't know much about when it came out, but not too long ago, there's an anime convention at the start of July, Anime Expo, and
Hmm.
they like to reveal their panels like a month in advance and what they're going to show off. And they've confirmed that The Ninth Jedi will be shown off at the convention. They will screen the whole first episode to attendees. And they confirmed in their little announcement that the series will premiere sometime in the summer. So by media release schedule, that should mean by the end of August, although I could see it being closer to September since they tend to do visions in September.
Where is the Anime Expo taking place?
I have no idea. I only follow it when there's Star Wars to be seen. And the last time I felt the need to follow it was when Vision season one was coming back about 5 years ago.
Hmm. Okay.
Visions, I think, is one of the more underrated pieces of Star Wars media because it's sort of, they don't market it very well. And when a season comes out, they drop the whole season at once. But
Yeah.
it's more unique because they shop it off to other studios. Like they'll do 9 episodes a season, but each one's just, it's basically like a 15-minute short film, and
Yeah.
everyone's a
Yeah.
different art style with different writers and different creators and different stories. Like
It's kind of cool.
it's
They
one of
see
the
which
most,
one comes out best in a way.
it's one of the more creative ones because it lets different people, like it doesn't, it's not animated in-house by Lucasfilm. They just let
Right.
other creators sort of
Yeah, weigh
do
in on
their,
the movie. Yeah.
yeah, they just sort of do their own spin on Star Wars, and I think it's been the most diverse because it's been in so many different time periods. Like, yes,
Hmm.
you've had stories that are set in the era of the Empire, but then you have stuff like the Ronin episodes, which are in a completely different timeline. Like, they're not canon at all. They have a totally different history inspired
Hmm.
by like feudal Japan. Or then you've got the Ninth Jedi, which is also probably not canon, but it also takes, if it were canon, it would take place like thousands of years after the movies.
Hmm.
Like it's so diverse just in terms of art styles, in terms of stories,
Yeah.
and
That's
in
cool.
terms of time periods, which I think diversity in terms of what's presented in the content is what we really need. In
Well, it also gives kind of a preview to the places they could go in some of the movies. You
yeah,
know.
some of
So,
and continuing, I could see them maybe one day even doing theatrical films with the Visions Presents branding. I've
right.
heard
Right.
rumors that there might be another series, Visions Presents the Duel, coming next year, which will follow the Duel Ronin episodes, which is
Hmm.
the other most popular story line from Visions. The other most popular, there's two shorts of that because they did a short for season one and season three with those characters. He's been the
Hmm.
most popular because they gave him tie-in comics and a tie-in book and action figures and Funkos. Like he's definitely like the mascot of Visions.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's only a matter of time before they do a full show about him, but
That's cool. All right. Well, we covered a lot today, Nick.
we'll cover a
And the
lot
next
more.
movie, Disclosure Day, when's that come out?
That comes out Friday the 12th. I'm seeing it on Thursday in IMAX, and they've already released the first track from John Williams' soundtrack online, and it is magnificent, and I cannot wait to hear the rest of it.
Yeah. All right. So in 2 days' time.
John Williams still cooking. Like Spielberg, John Williams is like the dream team, but John Williams' score, from people who've seen it early, they've said that this is Williams' best score in years, which
Yeah.
he's definitely been sort of dragging behind with more recent stuff he's done, like Obi-Wan and Indiana Jones and Rise of Skywalker. But the one track they've released for this movie so far is beautiful, and I cannot wait to hear the rest of it.
Yeah. No, that's gonna be good. I want to try to get to that too, but we'll see if it happens. So. All right, and what else you seeing?
Me and several friends are seeing the new Scary Movie. My hopes are very low. I do not have high expectations. I've heard it's not that good and kind of just a disjointed mess that barely functions as a movie, but we'll see
Okay,
if that
well,
is in fact the case.
yeah, you'll let us know. So,
I will, in fact.
all right, a lot of stuff. Busy time, busy summer. So,
Certainly.
all right, well, I guess on that, that's a wrap.
That is in fact a wrap and cut.